Hello class, we will be solving and graphing absolute value inequalities. If you remember, the absolute value of x can have two answers, right? So if we look at this example right here, the absolute value of x is equal to 2, there are two possibilities. The two possibilities are x is equal to a positive 2 because the absolute value of a positive 2 is a 2. And another possibility is x can also equal negative 2 because the absolute value of negative 2 is also 2. Now, if you remember from word problems and number lines, the absolute value of x minus the midpoint is equal to the endpoint. And so we're getting to this idea of what do we think the absolute value of x is less than 3 equal to. You know, all we're doing in this chapter is changing all the equal signs to less than or greater than signs. So if we use the model from above, the absolute value of x minus 0, which is the midpoint, is less than 3. What this means is that this is the distance between x and 0 is less than 3. It doesn't have to be 3. It could be 2, it could be 1, it could be 0, it could be less 2.5, it could be any of that. Okay? Now, I'm sure at first it can sound a little bit confusing, but there is a procedure, and even the procedure can look a little bit confusing. So what I want you to do, I want you to pause and read through the procedure on your own. The first procedure here is just to make sure that the absolute value part is by itself on one side of the inequality sign. The second step is to make sure that your inequality makes sense. For example, part A says the absolute value of x is greater than negative 2. Now, if you put any number in there, that's going to be true, because even if you put a negative 5 in there, you're going to get positive 5 is greater than negative 2, right? And that's always going to be true. For part B, if you have the absolute value of x is less than a negative number, like negative 3, there is absolutely no solution that could go into the x that is less than negative 3. Now, step 3 of the procedure can sound a little bit confusing, right? What is it saying with the compound inequality when to use and or? So, if you go to the next page, we have something, a mnemonic device that will hopefully help you. And what did Christopher Columbus say to his faithful companion Igor when they spotted the New World? The answer is Igor, land. Okay, what does that mean? The E stands for equal to, and the G stands for greater. Okay, when you have something that's equal and greater, then you're going to use the word or. Okay? Equal and greater, use or. The land part, if it is less than, then you're going to use and. And you're going to use and. Okay? So if you look down here, it says these are examples. If you have the absolute value of x equals 3, okay, equals, then you're going to do x equals 3 or x equals negative 3. Or, and then the next one, the absolute value of x is less than 3. That means x, you drop the absolute value sign, x is less than 3 and x is greater than negative 3. Okay? And then the last one here, the absolute value of x is greater than 3. You drop down the absolute value sign and you get x is greater than 3 or x is less than negative 3. Igor, land. That is what is going to help us. So, why don't you drop down to the 6 problems on the bottom, and then we'll get working on that together. Here we have the absolute value of x plus 7 is equal to 2. Since it is equal, and that's part of the Igor, I'm probably going to use the or. And if you remember, we split these into 2 branches. We got rid of the absolute value sign. X plus 7 was equal to 2 or x plus 7 was equal to a negative 2. And then we went ahead and solved it. And we got our solutions as x is equal to negative 5 or x is equal to negative 9. Again, we are using our mnemonic device, the Igor land, because of the equal and the or. If we jump to number 2, we have the absolute value of s plus 6 is greater than 6. Now, I'm going to do this one together. You drop the absolute value sign, s plus 6 is greater than 6, the regular one, and then you do s plus 6 is less than negative 6. You switch the inequality sign, but you also switch from the positive to the negative. And then you solve the same way. So I got two inequalities here. S is greater than 0 and s is less than negative 2. Now, in the beginning of the problem, I started with a greater than, which is part of the Igor. Therefore, my final answer is going to have an or at the end. If we jump to number 3, you'll notice first of all that there is a negative 2 being multiplied to the absolute value of x plus 3. So you have to get rid of that first by dividing by negative 2 on both sides. Couple things you got to make sure is that when you divide both sides by a negative, you make sure that the inequality sign less than gets switched, right? We have to switch that. And so you might be wondering, wait, I thought an absolute value could never be equal to a negative 4. You're right, it could be never equal to a negative 4, but it is greater than negative 4. So this is actually possible to continue to move on. So if we make branches here and start solving, what we would have to do is the regular one, x plus 3 is greater than negative 4, but also x plus 3 is less than positive 4, switching the inequality and switching the negative to positive. And then we just solve as normal. And after we solve it, we get x is greater than negative 7, x is less than 1. Now, even though at the beginning of this problem we started with a less than, we got to look at this guy here because that's the part where the absolute value is isolated. So, looking at the sign is greater than, and since that's part of Igor, we have x is greater than negative 7 or x is less than 1. Jump to number 4. X plus 5, the absolute value of x plus 5 plus 7 is less than or equal to 3. You got to get rid of the 7 first. Notice that when you subtract by 7, you get the absolute value of x plus 5 is less than or equal to negative 4. You do not have to move on here. This is not possible because no matter what answer you get on this side will always be positive, which means a positive number can never be less than negative 4. Therefore, there is no solution here. And so what I'd like you to do is try numbers 5 and 6 on your own, pause for a little bit, and then after you are done, you can unpause it, and then I will display the answers for 5 and 6. There are your solutions for numbers 5 and 6. Number 5 started off with a less than, so it is an and. Number 6 started off with a greater than, so it is an or. If you need to repeat that stuff, you can go back and watch those examples again. Otherwise, let's jump down to the word problem. It says here, a recent survey showed that 65% of young adults watch online video clips. The margin of error was within 3 percentage points. Find the range of young adults who use video sharing sites. Now, I'm not sure if you remember from way back when with the margin of error. So we got to find some couple keywords here. A recent survey showed that 65% of young adults. So what that means is we have an absolute value of x minus 65 is equal to the 3 percentage points, since that's our margin of error. And then you solve it. And there's our solution. Go ahead and re-watch this video if you need to. If you have any questions, come with them tomorrow.